The antique clock in Aarav's dimly lit study chimed midnight, its melancholic melody echoing the hollowness in his heart. 5 years. 5 years since the vibrant laughter of Sia had been silenced, swallowed by the inexplicable darkness that had descended upon their idyllic mountain retreat. He ran a callous thumb over the faded photograph on his desk. Sia, her eyes sparkling with a joy that now felt like a cruel phantom. Their love story had blossomed amidst the breathtaking peaks of the Himalayas, a secluded haven far from the clamor of the world. Aarav, a writer seeking solace and inspiration, had found his muse and his soulmate in Sia, a local artist with a spirit as free as the mountain winds. Their days were filled with shared dreams, whispered secrets, and the quiet understanding that bound two souls as one. Then came the night of the meteor shower. The sky had blazed with celestial fire, a spectacle they had eagerly awaited. But amidst the dazzling display, a shadow had fallen, a chilling premonition that prickled Aarav's skin. Sia had stepped out onto the balcony, her face upturned in awe. He remembered her gasp, not of wonder, but of sheer terror, just before she vanished, as if plucked from existence by an unseen hand. There was no sound, no struggle, just an empty space where she had been. The local police had dismissed it as a tragic accident, a fall into the treacherous ravines. But Aarav knew better. He had felt a shift in the air, the oppressive cold that had descended moments before her disappearance. He had seen the fleeting flicker of something unnatural in the periphery of his vision. He had stayed in their mountain home, a self-imposed exile, haunted by memories and the gnawing certainty that Sia's disappearance was far from ordinary. Tonight, the anniversary of that star-crossed night, a storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil within him. The wind howled like a tormented spirit, and the rain lashed against the windows, each drop a painful reminder of the tears he had shed. A sudden power outage plunged the cottage into darkness. The only illumination, the eerie glow of the lightning that intermittently lit up the room. Aarav fumbled for a candle, his hand trembling. As the flickering flame danced to life, casting grotesque shadows on the walls, he noticed something amiss. Sia's easel, untouched for 5 years, stood in the corner, and on it, a new painting had inexplicably appeared. It was a depiction of the meteor shower, but amidst the fiery streaks there was a dark, swirling vortex, and reaching out from it, a shadowy hand. The details were unsettlingly vivid, as if painted by someone who had witnessed the event firsthand. His heart pounded in his chest. He hadn't touched the easel since Sia's disappearance. Who could have painted this? A cold dread seeped into his bones. As he stared at the painting, a faint rhythmic tapping sound began, seemingly coming from the locked study door. Tap, tap, tap. It was soft at first, almost hesitant, but it grew steadily louder, more insistent. Aarav froze, every nerve in his body on high alert. He was alone in the remote cottage. Who could be knocking at this hour, in this storm? He edged towards the door, his hand instinctively reaching for the heavy brass lamp on his desk, his only weapon. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice barely a whisper. The tapping stopped. A moment of chilling silence hung in the air, broken only by the relentless drumming of the rain. Then, a low, guttural moan emanated from behind the door, a sound that sent a shiver of pure terror down his spine. It wasn't human. He stumbled back, his breath catching in his throat. The image of the shadowy hand in the painting flashed through his mind. Could it be connected? Suddenly, the tapping resumed, faster this time, more frantic, and then a new sound joined it. A faint scratching, as if something with sharp claws was scraping against the wood. The door rattled violently. Aarav backed away further, his eyes wide with terror. He had to get out. He turned to flee, but a gust of wind slammed the window open, extinguishing the candle and plunging him back into darkness. A blood-curdling screech echoed from outside, followed by the distinct sound of something heavy landing on the balcony. He was trapped. He huddled in the corner, his heart hammering against his ribs, the darkness amplifying every sound, every creak of the old house. He could hear heavy breathing just outside the study door, the scratching growing more intense, the moans more desperate. Then, a sliver of light appeared beneath the door, widening slowly. Something was forcing its way in. Aarav squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the unspeakable. But instead of a monstrous figure, a faint ethereal glow filled the room as the door creaked open. Standing in the doorway was a figure shrouded in the soft, white light. It was vaguely human in shape, but its features were indistinct. its presence radiating a strange mixture of sorrow and urgency. Aarav stared, paralyzed by fear and confusion. Was this the entity that had taken Sia? The luminous figure glided silently into the room, its gaze fixed on the painting of the meteor shower. It reached out a translucent hand towards the dark vortex, and a soft, mournful sigh seemed to fill the air. Then the figure turned towards Aarav, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of recognition. There was something familiar about the way it moved, the way it tilted its head. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed in his mind, not through his ears, but directly into his thoughts. "Aarav, help me." His breath hitched. That voice, it was Sia's. Tears welled up in his eyes. Could it be? Was this ethereal being the essence of his lost love, trapped in some spectral form? He found his voice, a choked whisper. "Sia, is that you?" The luminous figure nodded slowly, its ethereal eyes seeming to fill with a profound sadness. It gestured towards the painting, then towards itself, and then pointed urgently towards the raging storm outside. Aarav's mind raced. Could the meteor shower have opened some kind of portal, trapping Sia in another dimension? Was the shadowy hand in the painting the entity that held her captive? And was the storm somehow connected? As he tried to piece together the puzzle, the rhythmic tapping returned, this time from the window. A dark, shadowy form flickered outside, its red eyes glowing menacingly in the darkness. It was drawn to the light emanating from Sia's spectral form. The luminous figure of Sia recoiled, a silent scream of terror emanating from her. She looked at Aarav with desperate pleading in her eyes. He understood. He had to protect her. He grabbed the brass lamp, his fear momentarily overshadowed by a surge of protective love. He stood between Sia's ethereal form and the window, his heart pounding with a newfound courage. The shadowy figure outside the window lunged, its clawed hands smashing through the glass. Aarav swung the heavy lamp, connecting with a sickening thud. The shadowy figure shrieked, a sound that seemed to tear through the very fabric of reality, and recoiled back into the storm. But it was not defeated. Its malevolent red eyes still glowed in the darkness, fixated on Sia. Sia's ethereal form began to flicker, her light dimming. She was weakening. The connection to this realm was fading. Suddenly, Aarav remembered a small, intricately carved wooden pendant that Sia had always worn. It was made from a rare, luminous wood found only in the highest reaches of the Himalayas, said to possess protective and healing properties. He had kept it locked away, a painful reminder of her. He rushed to his desk, fumbled through a drawer, and retrieved the pendant. Its surface still held a faint warmth. He held it out towards Sia's fading form. As the pendant's soft glow reached her, Sia's ethereal light intensified momentarily. She reached out a translucent hand and touched the pendant, a faint smile gracing her lips. Then she looked at Aarav, her eyes filled with a love that transcended the boundaries of life and death. She mouthed a single word, a word that pierced his heart with both sorrow and a glimmer of hope. "Remember!" With that, her luminous form began to dissolve, fading into the soft glow of the pendant. The room fell silent, the only sound the raging storm outside. Aarav stood there, the pendant clutched tightly in his hand, the weight of his loss crushing him once more. But amidst the despair, Sia's last word echoed in his mind. "Remember." Remember what? Their love. The meteor shower? The shadowy figure? The pendant? He looked at the pendant, its soft glow pulsing gently. He remembered Sia telling him that the wood held the light of the mountains, a pure and untainted energy. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. A local legend Sia had once shared, a tale of a celestial event that had imbued certain objects with the power to bridge dimensions, but only through an act of selfless love and remembrance. Aarav's eyes widened. Could the pendant be the key? Could Sia's spirit be trapped, not by a malevolent entity, but by the lingering energy of the meteor shower, tethered to this realm? And was the shadowy figure trying to sever that connection, to claim her completely? He looked at the painting again, at the dark vortex in the reaching hand. He understood now. It wasn't holding her captive. It was trying to pull her further into the abyss. He had to act, and he had to act fast. Sia's fading form was a testament to the weakening connection. The pendant was the only link left. Driven by a desperate hope, Aarav clutched the pendant and rushed out into the storm. The wind and rain lashed at him, but he pressed on, towards the highest peak overlooking their cottage, the place where they had first declared their love under the starlit sky. He reached the precipice, the storm raging around him. The shadowy figure flickered in the distance, its red eyes burning with malevolent intent. Aarav held the pendant aloft, focusing all his love and memories of Sia into it. He closed his eyes and whispered her name into the wind, pouring his heart out into the storm. As he did so, the pendant began to glow brighter, its light cutting through the darkness. A beam of pure white energy shot upwards, towards the raging sky. The shadowy figure shrieked and recoiled as the light touched it, its form flickering violently. It lunged towards Aarav, but the beam of energy intensified, pushing it back. Then, as the peak of the meteor shower's anniversary arrived, the exact moment Sia had vanished 5 years ago, the beam of light from the pendant pierced the dark clouds. A celestial glow descended, bathing the mountain peak in an otherworldly luminescence. And within that light, a figure began to materialize. Not the faint, ethereal form from the cottage, but Sia, vibrant and real, her eyes filled with love and recognition. The shadowy figure shrieked one last time, before dissolving into nothingness, its malevolent presence banished by the pure energy of love and remembrance. Aarav stood frozen, tears streaming down his face as Sia ran towards him, her laughter echoing in the wind, a sound he thought he would never hear again. They embraced, the storm suddenly ceasing around them, as if the very elements had bowed to the power of their reunited love. The celestial light faded, leaving behind a sky filled with stars, brighter and more beautiful than Aarav had ever seen. Sia was back, not as a ghost, but as the woman he loved, her life force restored by the selfless act of remembrance and the power of the pendant. The meteor shower, the source of their tragedy, had also become the catalyst for their miraculous reunion. As they stood hand in hand, bathed in the soft moonlight, a sense of profound peace settled over them. They had faced the darkness, and their love had not only survived, but had triumphed in the most extraordinary way. The silence that followed the storm's abrupt cessation was profound, broken only by the gentle whisper of the mountain breeze, and the soft murmur of Sia's voice as she spoke his name, a sound sweeter than any melody Aarav had ever heard. He held her close, the warmth of her embrace a tangible reality after 5 years of ghostly longing. "Aarav," she whispered, her fingers tracing the lines of his face, her eyes filled with a love that mirrored his own. I remember everything. The light, the cold, the darkness." He held her tighter, afraid that she might vanish again, that this miraculous reunion was just another cruel illusion. "What happened, Sia? What took you?" Sia's brow furrowed, her gaze distant for a moment, as if reliving a terrifying memory. "When the meteor shower was at its peak, there was a different kind of light, Aarav. A cold, hungry light. It reached for me. I felt myself being pulled, away from you, away from everything. The vortex in the painting." Aarav breathed, realization dawning. Sia nodded, a shiver running through her. "It was like a tear in the fabric of our world. And that shadow, it was waiting on the other side. It fed on the energy of the celestial event, and it wanted to pull me into its realm. But why you, Sia? I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling. Perhaps the pendant. It always felt connected to the mountains, to the stars. Maybe it made me visible to it." Aarav looked at the pendant, still clutched in his hand, its soft glow now faded. "And the ethereal form, the one in the cottage, that was me," Sia explained, her voice filled with a lingering sadness. "A part of me, trapped between worlds. I could sense you, feel your grief. I tried to reach out, to guide you, but I was weak, fading." "The painting? You painted it?" Sia nodded. "In my in-between state, it was a desperate attempt to communicate, to show you what had happened. The rhythmic tapping, the scratching, the guttural moans, the terrifying sounds that had filled the cottage suddenly made sense. It was the shadowy entity, trying to break through, drawn by Sia's presence, feeding on her fading energy." "And the storm?" Aarav asked. I think it amplified the tear, weakened the boundaries," Sia murmured. "It made it stronger, more able to reach me." The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a terrifying picture of a cosmic event that had ripped Sia from his world, and the malevolent entity that had sought to claim him. "But how are you here now? Real?" Aarav asked, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. Sia touched the pendant, a faint warmth returning to its surface. "Your love, Aarav, your unwavering belief. And the pendant, it held a connection, a pure energy. When you poured your memories and your love into it, at the exact moment of the meteor shower's anniversary, it acted as a conduit, pulling me back through the tears." "The legend," Aarav whispered, remembering the tale Sia had shared about the pendant's power, a legend he had dismissed as folklore. "It was true," Sia affirmed, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Selfless love and remembrance. They are powerful forces, Aarav. More powerful than any darkness. They held each other for a long moment, the reality of their reunion sinking in. It was a miracle, born out of grief, love, and a forgotten legend. But as the first rays of dawn painted the sky, casting a golden hue over the mountain peaks, a sense of unease settled over them once more. Sia's last whispered word echoed in Aarav's mind. Remember. Remember what, Sia? He asked, pulling away slightly, his gaze searching hers. Sia's eyes clouded with a flicker of fear. I don't know exactly, but when I was there in the darkness, I sensed other things, other entities, drawn to the tear, feeding on its energy, the one that tried to take me. It wasn't alone. A cold dread washed over Aarav. Their ordeal might not be over. The tear, in reality, opened by the meteor shower, might still be vulnerable. As if to confirm their fears, the air around them grew cold, a faint, acrid smell filling their nostrils. The sky, moments before bathed in the soft light of dawn, began to darken again, the clouds swirling with an unnatural speed. A low, guttural growl echoed from the surrounding peaks, closer this time, more menacing. The sense of peace they had felt moments ago shattered, replaced by a primal fear. It's not over, is it? Aarav whispered, his hand instinctively tightening around Sia's. Sia shook her head, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrored his own. No. I can feel them. They're still out there, drawn by the lingering energy. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Cracks appeared in the rocky terrain, and a deep, resonant humming filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. From the swirling clouds above, a beam of dark energy descended, focusing on the very spot where Sia had reappeared. It was a vortex of shadow, twisting and writhing, and within it, Aarav could see fleeting glimpses of grotesque shapes and glowing red eyes. "They're trying to pull me back," Sia cried, clutching Aarav's arm. He held her tight, his mind racing. The pendant's energy had been spent in bringing Sia back. What could they possibly do against this overwhelming darkness? Then, his gaze fell upon the peak itself, the ancient, weathered rock that had witnessed their love blossom. He remembered another local legend, one Sia had told him about the mountain itself, that it held a dormant power, a pure, untainted energy that could be awakened in times of great need, but only by a sacrifice of something truly cherished, offered with a pure heart. Aarav looked at Sia, his heart aching. He had just gotten her back. Could he risk losing her again? But the dark vortex above grew stronger, its pull becoming almost unbearable. Sia cried out in pain, her body beginning to lift from the ground. There was no time for hesitation. Aarav knew what he had to do. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the faded photograph of Sia, the one he had kept on his desk for 5 long years, the image of her radiant smile that had sustained him through his grief. It was the last tangible piece of their life, before the darkness had descended. With a trembling hand, he held the photograph aloft, his heart filled with a love so profound it transcended even his fear of loss. "I offer this," he cried out into the storm, his voice raw with emotion. "The most precious memory I have. Let her go. Let us both go." As the photograph fluttered from his grasp and fell towards the jagged rocks below, a surge of energy erupted from the mountain peak. A brilliant white light engulfed Aarav and Sia, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The humming intensified, resonating deep within their bones. The cracks in the ground began to glow with a soft, ethereal light. The mountain itself seemed to awaken, its ancient energy rising to meet the encroaching darkness. The dark vortex above shrieked, its shadowy tendrils recoiling from the pure energy emanating from the peak. The grotesque shapes within writhed and dissolved. The red eyes flickered and vanished. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity, a clash between the pure power of love and remembrance, amplified by the mountain's ancient energy, and the cold, hungry darkness that had sought to claim Sia. Finally, with a deafening roar, the dark vortex imploded, its shadowy energy dissipating into nothingness. The oppressive cold lifted, the acrid smell vanished, and the storm clouds above began to break apart, revealing a sky washed clean. The brilliant white light surrounding Aarav and Sia softened, bathing them in a warm, comforting glow. The humming faded, and the trembling of the ground subsided. The mountain stood silent and majestic once more. Aarav and Sia held each other, weak but safe, the dawn now fully breaking, painting the sky in hues of gold and rose. They had faced the darkness again, and this time, with the mountain's help, they had banished it. As they looked at each other, a profound understanding passed between them. Their love had not only brought Sia back, but had also awakened a powerful force, a guardian spirit residing within the ancient mountain. They knew that they would never forget the terror they had faced, the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of their reality. But they also knew the strength of their love, the power of remembrance, and the miraculous protection of the mountains they called home. Hand in hand, they began to descend the peak, leaving behind the site of their second miracle. The future was uncertain, but they faced it together, their love a beacon against any lingering shadows.